5 cringy Formula 1 feuds. 5 Formula 1 feuds that made me cringe like I was watching an episode of The Office. Just to clarify, this list is not about the hottest feuds or the best feuds in Formula 1 history, but rather about the ones that made me awkwardly think about changing the channel to watch something a little less awkward, like an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm or something. Let's get straight into this. Number 5. Max's main squeeze's daddy versus the mighty mustache. Yes, PK versus Mansell. Both these drivers were world class. PK won 3 drivers' titles and Mansell won one of the most dominant titles ever in 1992. They were, however, teammates at Williams in 86 and 87. PK was the number 1 guy, but Nigel failed to read the script and beat him handsomely in 1986, almost winning the title himself, with PK going on to win the title in 87. Never one to shy away from confrontation, PK let his mouth do much of the fighting against Mansell, leading to some horribly cringy quotes, and I quote, "In 1988, PK made comments in a magazine about his rival Nigel Mansell, calling him an uneducated blockhead. He said Mansell is argumentative, he's rude, and he's got a really ugly wife." Wow, that's mean. Years later, Mansell would say, "He played a lot of psychological games. He criticized me on many occasions. He would also go on to say the most insulting things, and was even once very nasty about my wife. That's out of order." End quote. Much more diplomatic was Mansell than PK. PK was also quoted as calling Nigel a fast idiot.
In Portugal, when I found out to have use free differential, was very good in the dirty circuit. The car don't get any understeer, you know. And I convinced they put this free differential on the T car, and before the race I chose for the T car, and I knew it was much better.
Então, é um idiota veloz, né? Primeiro, ele joga golfe, eu jogo tênis. Segundo, ele gosta de mulher feia, eu gosto de mulher bonita. Terceiro, eu ganhei 3 campeonatos do mundo.
Suffice it to say, the two did not get along. Number 4. Everybody's second favorite German. That's behind Schumacher or Hülkenberg, depending on whether you love or hate Schumacher, versus everyone's second favorite Aussie. That's behind Ricciardo or Piastri, depending if you love Red Bull or McLaren. Yes, it's Vettel versus Webber. Before they teamed up, Vettel crashed into Webber at the Japanese GP in 07, taking both of them out, to which the Aussie said, "That's just kids, isn't it? They haven't got enough experience," said Webber. "They do a good job, and then they it all up." When they teamed up at Red Bull, the team was more like today's Aston Martin than the Red Bull machine we all now know and fear. But when the team got their stuff right and delivered the car that Vettel would win 4 straight drivers' titles in, the two teammates started rubbing each other the wrong way. Quoting an article on the F1.com website, in qualifying for that year's British Grand Prix, Webber's new spec front wing was handed over to Vettel. The Aussie slammed down a can of Red Bull in frustration in the press conference on Saturday, and then won the race to drive home a point, end quote. They crashed at the 2010 Turkish Grand Prix. Later, Webber was asked to make way for the flying German on track, leading to the following situation when they had received team orders for Vettel to stay behind Mark Webber.
And look after your tyres, please. This is silly, Seb, come on.
Yep, that's good teamwork.
Okay, Mark, he was told.
Now quoting an article on foxsports.com.au. 2010 British Grand Prix. Despite having led the championship, Webber was starting to feel like Red Bull were favouring the German in the title race, in particular giving Vettel a new front wing for the Silverstone race. Webber out-jumped pole sitter Vettel and decisively blocked him as they went into turn 1 to take the lead. The Aussie went on to dominate the race. Not bad for a number 2 driver, he cheekily told the team over the radio, end quote. Webber would go on to retire from Formula 1, and Vettel would move on to fail pretty much miserably in his attempt to make Ferrari great again. Webber would later also write an autobiography in which he had a few interesting things to say about his former teammate. Number 3, Fernando Alonso versus Lewis Hamilton, once teammates at McLaren. When double world champion Alonso was joined at McLaren in 2007 by rookie Lewis Hamilton, no sane person expected the noob to match the champ. But man, were we wrong. The pair battled for the title right up to the final race, only to lose it to Kimi in the Ferrari by the smallest of margins, effectively denying each other and McLaren the win. This would be the start of a more than a decade-long fest of a feud, with most shots admittedly being fired by Alonso. Some interesting points along the way. Quoting www.haggerty.com, Hamilton double-crossed Alonso by not letting him pass in qualifying. Keen to put his young teammate back in his place, the Spaniard lingered in the pit longer than he was supposed to, ruining Hamilton's grid lap. Alonso was given a 5-place grid penalty. Furious with McLaren, the Spaniard demanded they run Lewis out of fuel. If they refused his demands, he would go to the authorities with emails proving McLaren was holding stolen Ferrari technical documents, end quote. Wow, so Alonso effectively helped break the Spygate scandal, costing McLaren a whopping $100 million fine along the way. How's that for cutting off your nose to spite an English teammate? At the Brazilian Grand Prix in 2023, Alonso was magnificent, keeping Perez's far superior Red Bull at bay to finish 3rd for Aston Martin. What did Fernando say afterwards? And I quote themirror.co.uk. Obviously, the last lap overtake was quite a lot of commitment. Alonso explained, all while Mercedes' inquest into an inexcusable and miserable race began after Hamilton only finished 8th. We were both just all or nothing in a few corners, but I think, to be honest, the most important overtake of the race was on Hamilton into turn 4 on lap 1. That changed my race, end quote. On Hamilton, Alonso also said on a Talksport.com article, but yes, I still think he's one of the best in history, but at the same time he has been lucky, or has known to be in a dominant car for many years. When that happened, Schumacher won 7 titles, Lewis also 7, Verstappen is on his way to a 3rd, I won 2. To be champion, you need the best car, end quote. They were teammates in 2007. In 2023, Alonso is still talking about Hamilton. Alonso may be a brilliant driver who never seems to age. Hamilton may be a brilliant driver, and he also seems to live rent-free in Alonso's head. Number 2, Alain Prost versus Ayrton Senna, also once teammates at McLaren, 2 of the greatest ever, who gave us this mess in Japan twice.
This is the opportunity that Senna's looking for, and he's going through, out! Oh my goodness, this is fantastic! This is what we were fearing might happen during the race.
The lights go! And Senna sprints away, but Alain Prost takes the lead. It's happened. Alain Prost has taken the advantage. Senna is trying to go through on the inside, and it's happened immediately. This is amazing. Senna goes off at the first corner.
Their racing ability was unmatched. Their cringe fest of a rivalry was one of the first things that made a stupid little kid the Formula 1 fan now speaking to you. They gave no quarter as teammates at McLaren, each winning 1 title as teammates, pushed each other beyond their own limits. Prost left to Ferrari and later Williams. Senna wanted the Williams drive. Prost told Frank Williams that he would not be Senna's teammate again, leading to this beaut of a quote by Senna.
Impossible to accept somebody to come to a team February in the year with a signed contract, Vettel, myself and himself too, and eventually they change his side but stay with the Vettel myself. And I think if Prost wants to be called the sole champ and 3 times world champion, come back in a sportive way, maybe win another championship, he should be sportive. The way he's doing, he's behaving like a coward.
The crashes, the political infighting, the insults were all however forgotten once Prost retired after the 1993 season, and the pair was said to have made amends, with Prost even serving as a pallbearer at Senna's funeral in '94. And number 1, you probably guessed it, The man who beat both 7-time World Drivers' Champions versus the man he beat in equal machinery in 2016. Yes, it's Rosberg versus Hamilton. The one you knew was coming, yet. Sir Lewis versus the man sometimes called Britney by the rest of the grid. I'm guessing it's about the hair. Hamilton seemed to always have the slight edge over Nico, but he was never the out-and-out number one driver for Team Toto. Twice Lewis won the title from Nico until all the puzzle pieces clicked for Rosberg in 2016 and he won one and promptly buggered off into the sunset. They grew up together, raced in the lower Formula against one another, were seen as friends. Then they got an unbeatable car in Formula 1. Many wins and loads of ridiculousness ensued. In 2014, Merck compiled a dossier on Hamilton's performance to help the team improve. Rosberg obviously got a look at it. And I quote Lewis Hamilton. Someone in the team did a huge study on my pace in Malaysia, and since I arrived in Bahrain, Nico had a big document of all the places I was quick and used that to his advantage. So I will do the same for the next round in China and hope I can capitalize. Awkward. 2015 US GP. After the race, the two threw caps at each other. That's a bit childish. They took each other out in Spain in 2016 to hand Max his first Grand Prix win, leading to Niki Lauda saying, and I quote, "Lewis is too aggressive, it is stupid, we could have won this race," end quote. When Rosberg retired with his title, Hamilton said, and I quote, "The sport will miss him, but I wish him all the best. This is the first time he's won in 18 years, hence why it was not a surprise that he decided to stop," end quote. Wow. Apply ointment to burn area, Mr. Rosberg. And that is 5 cringy ass Formula 1 feuds. I hope that you enjoyed our video, and I humbly ask if you would consider subscribing and or sharing the content. It really does help us smaller channels grow into less smaller channels, which may grow into medium-sized channels, which may grow into large channels, which all need you to subscribe and share. So thank you. To quote the great Alan Partridge.
So on that fatal bombshell, it simply remains for me to say goodbye.
God bless. Hope you visit our channel and check out some of the playlists. Goodbye.